Hey everybody, welcome to my Bible show. It's called The Bible for Everyone, and it's where I go through the scriptures with you guys, and we just learn about it, from a non-biased position. So today I'm gonna try to read through 8 chapters of Genesis, 12 to 20. And see how that goes. And looks like the live is working, and I can see the chat. So if you have any questions or comments, please add them in the chat. Okay, so God's call to Abraham. The Lord said to Abram, he is not Abraham yet, he's still Abram. So God's call to Abram. The Lord said to Abram, leave your country, your relatives, and your father's home, and go to a land that I'm going to show you. I will give you many descendants, and they will become a great nation. I will bless you and make your name famous, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, but I will curse those who curse you, and through you I will bless all the nations. When Abram was 75 years old, he had started out from Haran, as the Lord had told him to do, and Lot went with him. Abram took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all the wealth and all the slaves they had acquired in Haran, and they started out for the land of Canaan. When they arrived in Canaan, Abram traveled through the land until he came to the sacred tree of Moreh, the holy place at Shechem. At that time the Canaanites were still living in the land. The Lord said to Abram and said to him, this is the country that I am going to give your descendants. Then Abram built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. After that he moved on south to the hill country east of the city of Bethel, and set up his camp between Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There also he built an altar and worshipped the Lord. Then he moved on from place to place, going toward the southern part of Canaan. But there was a famine in Canaan, and it was so bad that Abram went farther south to Egypt to live there for a while. When he was about to cross the border into Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, you are a beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will assume that you are my wife, and so they will kill you. So they will kill me and let you live. Tell them that you are my sister, then because of you, they will let me live and treat me well. When he crossed the border into Egypt, the Egyptians did see his wife was beautiful. Some of the court officials saw her and told the king how beautiful she was, so she was taken to his palace. Because of her, the king treated Abram well and gave him flocks of sheep and goats, cattle, donkeys, and camels. But because the king had taken Sarai, the Lord sent terrible diseases on him and on the people of his palace. Then the king sent for Abram and asked him, what have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say that she was your sister, and let me take her as my wife? Here is your wife. Take her and get out. The king gave orders to his men, so they took Abram and put him out of the country, together with his wife and everything he owned. So Abram wanted to lie about Sarai being his wife, and basically God didn't let him do that because God cursed the king of Egypt when he took Sarai into his palace. And the king was smart enough to realize he was being deceived. Let's see if anyone's okay. So chapter 13. Abram went north out of Egypt to the southern part of Canaan with his wife and everything he owned, and Lot went with him. Abram was a very rich man with sheep, goats, and cattle, as well as silver and gold. Then he left there and moved from place to place, going toward Bethel. He reached the place between Bethel and Ai, where he had camped before and had built an altar. There he worshipped the Lord. Lot also had sheep, goats, and cattle, as well as his own family and servants, and so there was not enough pasture land for the two of them to stay together, because they had too many animals. So quarrels broke out between the men who took care of Abram's animals and those who took care of Lot's animals. At that time, the Canaanites and the Perizzites were still living in the land. Then Abram said to Lot, "We are relatives, and your men and my men shouldn't be quarreling, so let's separate. Choose any part of the land you want. You go one way, and I'll go the other." Lot looked around and saw that the whole Jordan Valley, all the way to Zoar, had plenty of water, like the garden of the Lord, or like the land of Egypt. This was before the Lord had destroyed the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose the whole Jordan Valley for himself and moved away toward the east. That is how the two men parted. Abram stayed in the land of Canaan, and Lot settled among the cities in the valley and camped near Sodom, whose people were wicked, and they sinned against the Lord. After Lot had left, the Lord said to Abram, "From where you are, look carefully in all directions. I am going to give you and your descendants all the land that you see, and it will be yours forever. I am going to give you so many descendants that no one will ever be able to count them all. It would be as easy to count all the specks of dust on earth. Now go and look over the whole land, because I am going to give it all to you." So Abram moved his camp and settled near the sacred trees of Mamre at Hebron, and there he built an altar to the Lord. 4 kings, Amraphel of Babylonia, Arioch of Elasar, Chedorlaomer of Elam, and Tidal of Goyim, went to war against 5 other kings: Bera of Sodom, Bersha of Gomorrah, Shinab of Admah, Shember of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, or Zoar. These 5 kings had formed an alliance and joined forces in Sidon Valley, which is now in the Dead Sea. They had been under the control of Chedorlaomer for 12 years, but in the 13th year they rebelled against him. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and his allies came with their armies and defeated the Rebaim and Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zuzim and Ham, the Emim in the plains of Kiriathim, and the Horites in the mountains of Edom, pursuing them as far as El Paran on the edge of the desert. Then they turned around and came back to Kadesh, then known as En-Mishpat. They conquered all the lands of the Amalekites and defeated the Amorites who lived in Hazazon Tamar. So that's a little hard to follow, but don't worry too much about that. Then the kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela drew up their armies for battle in Siddim Valley, and fought against the kings of Elam, Goyim, Babylonia, Elasar, 5 kings against 4. The valley was full of tar pits, and when the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah tried to run away from the battle, they fell into the pits, but the other 3 kings escaped to the mountains. The 4 kings took everything in Sodom and Gomorrah, including the food, and went away. Lot, Abram's nephew, was living in Sodom, so they took him and all his possessions. So let me just summarize that a little bit. So Abram, there was 3 main characters. There was Abram and his wife Sarai, and they had a nephew named Lot. And these people are descendants from Adam and Eve, basically, and from Noah as well. After the flood, so the creation has already happened, obviously. The great flood has already happened, and these are the descendants of Noah. And So basically, Abram and Lot, his nephew, couldn't coexist anymore because they had too many belongings, too many animals to live peacefully together. So they split up, and Lot went to Sodom, here, which is in modern day Jordan, and Abram went north of Egypt. So Abram went towards Israel, modern day Israel, and but even though they split up, Abram still cares about Lot. And since Sodom and Gomorrah lost this war of the 5 kings versus the 4 kings, they basically kidnapped Lot. And so next we're going to read about how Abram goes to rescue his nephew, if that makes sense. Okay. Alright, so let's continue. So Abram rescues Lot. Okay. But a man escaped and reported all this to Abram. The Hebrew who was living near the sacred trees belonging to Mamre the Amorite. Mamre and his brothers Eshcol and Aner were Abram's allies. When Abram heard that his nephew had been captured, he called together all the fighting men in his camp, 318 in all, and pursued the 4 kings all the way to Dan. Then he divided his men into groups, attacked the enemy by night, and defeated them. He chased them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus, and got back all the loot that had been taken. He also brought back his nephew Lot and his possessions together with the women and the other prisoners. When Abram came back from his victory over I need to work on this name. Chedorlaomer. I'm just going to say Chedorlaomer. When Abram came back from his victory over Chedorlaomer and the other kings, the king of Sodom went out to meet him in Shaveh Valley, also called the King's Valley. And Melchizedek, who was the king of Salem, and also a priest of the Most High God, brought bread and wine to Abram, blessed him, and said, May the Most High God who made heaven and earth bless Abram. May the Most High God who gave you victory over your enemies be praised. And Abram gave Melchizedek 1/10 of all the loot he had recovered. The king of Sodom said to Abram, Keep the loot, but give me back all my people. Abram answered, I solemnly swear before the Lord, the Most High God, maker of heaven and earth, that I will not keep anything of yours, not even a thread or a sandal strap. Then you can never say, I am the one who made Abram rich. I will take nothing for myself. I will accept only what my men have used. But let my allies Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre take their share. So after the king of Sodom basically kidnapped Lot, who's Abram's nephew, he goes and defeats the king and doesn't demand anything, just wants to rescue his nephew. So after this, Abram had a vision, and he heard the Lord say to him, Do not be afraid, Abram. I will shield you from danger and give you a great reward. But Abram answered, Sovereign Lord, what good will your reward do me, since I have no children? My only heir is Eliezer of Damascus. You have given me no children, and one of my servants will inherit my property. Then he heard the Lord speaking to him again. This servant Eliezer will not inherit your property. Your own son will be your heir. The Lord took him outside and said, Look at the sky and try to count the stars. You will have as many descendants as that. Abram put his trust in the Lord, and because of this the Lord was pleased with him and accepted him. Then the Lord said to him, I am the Lord who led you out of Ur in Babylonia, to give you this land as your own. Okay, so this is one of the most important verses of the Bible. Abram put his trust in the Lord, and because of this, the Lord was pleased with him and accepted him. So that is how you be accepted by the Lord, is to just trust Him, to stop thinking this idea that you can build your way up to heaven, like how they did it in the Tower of Babylon. Those people were so prideful that they thought they could reach up to heaven and get there by themselves. And that's not the approach that Abram took. He trusted in the Lord. And I think the King James Version or some other translations, like the more literal translations, say that he was counted as righteous in that time. So that's really important. Just trust in God and you will be counted as righteous, just like Abram. But Abram asked, "Sovereign Lord, how can I know that it will be mine?" He answered, "Bring me a cow, a goat, and a ram, each of them 3 years old, and a dove and a pigeon." Abram brought the animals to God, cut them in half, and placed the halves opposite each other in 2 rows. But he did not cut up the birds. Vultures came down on the bodies, but Abram drove them off. When the sun was going down, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and fear and terror came over him. The Lord said to him, "Your descendants will be strangers in the foreign lands. They will be servants there and will be treated cruelly for 400 years. But I will punish the nation that enslaves them. And when they leave their foreign land, they will take great wealth with them. You yourself will live to a ripe old age, die in peace, and be buried. It will be 4 generations before your descendants come back here, because I will not drive out the Amorites until they become so wicked that they must be punished." When the sun had set and it was dark, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch suddenly appeared and passed between the pieces of the animals. Then and there the Lord made a covenant with Abram. He said, "I promise to give your descendants all this land from the border of Egypt to the Euphrates River, including the lands of Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites." Abram's wife Sarai had not borne any children, but she had an Egyptian servant named Hagar. And so she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Why don't you sleep with Hagar? Perhaps she can have a child for me." Abram agreed with what Sarai said, so she gave Hagar to him. Abram had Hagar, and she became pregnant. When she found out that she was pregnant, she became proud and despised Sarai. Okay, it's interesting. Then Sarai said to Abram, "It's your fault that Hagar despises me. I myself gave her to you, and ever since she found out that she was pregnant, she has despised me. May the Lord judge which of us is right, you or me." Abram answered, "Very well. She is your servant and under your control. Do whatever you want with her." Then Sarai treated Hagar so cruelly that she ran away. So Hagar will have a son named Ishmael. But Sarai will have a son later on in a miraculous way. So let's keep reading. Then the angel of the Lord met Hagar at a spring in the desert on the road to Shur, and said, "Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going?" She answered, "I am running away from my mistress." He said, being the angel said this, "Go back to her and be her servant." Then he said, "I will give you so many descendants that no one will be able to count them. You are going to have a son, and you will name him Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your cries of distress. But your son will live like a wild donkey. He will be against everyone, and everyone will be against him. He will live apart from all his relatives." Hagar asked herself, "Have I really seen God and lived to tell about it?" So she called the Lord, who had spoken to her, a God who sees. That is why people call the well between Kadesh and Bered, the well of the living one who sees me. Hagar bore Abram a son, and he named him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old at the time. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am the Almighty God. Obey me and always do what is right. I will make my covenant with you and give you many descendants. Abram bowed down with his face touching the ground, and God said, I make this covenant with you. I promise that you will be the ancestor of many nations. Your name will no longer be Abram, but Abraham, because I am making you the ancestor of many nations. I will give you many descendants, and some of them will be kings. You will have so many descendants that they will become nations. So I have a little footnote here that says Abraham. This name sounds like the Hebrew for ancestor of many nations. Okay. I will keep my promise to you and to your descendants in future generations as an everlasting covenant. I will be your God and the God of your descendants. I will give to you and your descendants this land in which you are now a foreigner. The whole land of Canaan will belong to your descendants forever, and I will be their God. God said to Abraham, you must agree to keep the covenant with me, both you and your descendants in future generations. You and your descendants must all agree to circumcise every male among you. From now on, you must circumcise every boy who is 8 days old, including servants born in your homes. This will show that there is a covenant between you and me. My covenant is everlasting. Any male who is not will no longer be considered one of my people, because he has not kept the covenant with me. God said to Abraham, you must no longer call your wife Sarai, for now on her name is Sarah. I will bless her, and I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she will become the mother of nations, and there will be kings among her descendants. So it says Sarah. This name in Hebrew means princess. Okay. Abraham bowed down with his face touching the ground, but he began to laugh when he thought, can a man have a child when he is 100 years old? Can Sarah have a child at 90? He asked God, why not yet let Ishmael be my heir? But God said, no, your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will name him Isaac. I will keep my covenant with him and with his descendants forever. It is an everlasting covenant. I have heard your request about Ishmael, so I will bless him and give him many children and many descendants. He will be the father of 12 princes, and I will make a great nation of his descendants. But I will keep my covenant with your son Isaac, who will be born to Sarah about this time next year. When God finished speaking to Abraham, he left him. On that same day, Abraham obeyed God and circumcised Ishmael and all the others. Abraham was 99 years old when they were with all of Abram's. The Lord appeared to Abraham at the sacred trees of Mamre. As Abraham was sitting at the entrance of his tent during the hottest part of the day, he looked up and saw 3 men standing there. As soon as he saw them, he ran out to meet them. Bowing down with his face touching the ground, he said, Sir, please do not pass by my home without stopping. I am here to serve you. Let me bring some water for you to wash your feet so you can rest here beneath the tree. I will also bring a bit of food. It will give you strength to continue your journey. You have honored me by coming to my home, so let me serve you. They replied, Thank you, we accept. Abraham hurried into the tent and said to Sarah, Quick, take a sack of your best flour and bake some bread. Then he ran to the herd and picked out a calf that was fat and tender and gave it to a servant who hurried to get it ready. He took some cream, some milk, and the meat and set the food before the men. There, under the tree, he served them himself, and they ate. Then they asked him, Where is your wife, Sarah? She is there in the tent, he answered. One of them said, 9 months from now I will come back, and your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah was behind him at the door of the tent listening. Abraham and Sarah were very old, and Sarah had stopped her monthly. So Sarah laughed to herself and said, "Now that I am old and worn out, can I still have a child?" Then the Lord asked Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Can I really have a child when I am so old?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? As I said, 9 months from now I will return, and Sarah will have a son." Because Sarah was afraid, she denied it. "I didn't laugh," she said. "Yes, you did," he replied. "You laughed." Then the men left and went to a place where they could look down at Sodom, and Abraham went with them to send them on their way. And the Lord said to himself, "I will not hide from Abraham what I am going to do. His descendants will become a great and mighty nation, and through him I will bless all the nations. I have chosen him in order that he may command his sons and his descendants to obey me and to do what is right and just. If they do, I will do everything for him that I have promised." Then the Lord said to Abraham, "These are terrible accusations against Sodom and Gomorrah, and their sin is very great. I must go down to find out whether or not the accusations which I have heard are true." Then the two men left and went on toward Sodom, but the Lord remained with Abraham. Abraham approached the Lord and asked, "Are you really going to destroy the innocent with the guilty? If there are 50 innocent people in the city, will you destroy the whole city? Won't you spare it in order to save the 50? Surely you won't kill the innocent with the guilty. That's impossible. You can't do that. If you did, the innocent would be punished along with the guilty. That is impossible. The judge of all earth has to act justly." The Lord answered, "If I find 50 innocent people in Sodom, I will spare the whole city for their sake." Abraham spoke again, "Please forgive my boldness in continuing to speak to you. Lord, I am only a man and have no right to say anything. But perhaps there will be only 45 innocent people instead of 50. Will you destroy the whole city because there are 5 too few?" The Lord answered, "I will not destroy the city if I find 45 innocent people." Abraham spoke again. "Perhaps it will only be 40, he replied. "I will not destroy it if there are 40. Abraham said, "Please don't be angry, Lord, but I must speak again. What if there's only 30? He said, "I will not do it if I find 30. Abraham said, "Please forgive my boldness in continuing to speak to you, Lord. Suppose there are only 20 are found." He said, "I will not destroy the city if I find 20. Abraham said, "Please don't be angry, Lord, and I will speak only once more. What if only 10 are found?" He said, "I will not destroy it if there are 10. After he had finished speaking with Abraham, the Lord went away, and Abraham returned home. So you can see Abraham's, let's see if there's you can see Abraham's persistence with that. He kept lowering the number so that he could save the city where his nephew is living. And we'll read more of the story. There's 2 more chapters left in this episode. Okay, how long have we been going for? Only about a half hour. Okay. Okay. So when the 2 angels came to Sodom that evening, Lot was sitting at the city gate. As soon as he saw them, he got up and went to meet them. He bowed down before them and said, "Sirs, I am here to serve you. Please come to my house. You can wash your feet and spend the night. In the morning you can get up early and go on your way." But they answered, "No, we will spend the night here in the city square." He kept on urging them, and finally they went with him to his house. Lot ordered his servants to bake some bread and prepare a fine meal for the guests. When it was ready, they ate it. Before the guests went to bed, the men of Sodom surrounded the house. All the men of the city, both young and old, were there. They called out to Lot and asked, "Where are the men who came to stay with you?" Lot went outside and closed the door behind him. He said to them, "Friends, I beg you, don't do such a wicked thing." But they said, "Get out of our way, foreigner. Who are you to tell us what to do? Out of our way, or we will treat you worse than them." They pushed Lot back and moved up to break down the door. But the two men, okay, and these two men are angels, keep that in mind, inside reached out, pulled Lot back into the house, and shut the door. Then they struck all the men outside with blindness so that they could not find the door. The two men said to Lot, "If you have anyone else here, sons, daughters, sons-in-law, or any other relatives inside the city, get them out of here, because we are going to destroy the place. The Lord has heard these terrible accusations against these people, and he has sent us to destroy the city." Then Lot went to the men that his daughters were going to marry and said, "Hurry up and get out of here. The Lord is going to destroy this place." But they thought he was joking. At dawn, the angels tried to make Lot hurry. "Quick," they said, "take your wife and your daughters and get out, so that you will not lose your lives when the city is destroyed." Lot hesitated. The Lord, however, had pity on him, so the men took him, his wife, and his two daughters by the hand and led them out of the city. Then one of the angels said, "Run for your lives. Don't look back and don't stop in the valley. Run to the hills so that you won't be killed." But Lot answered, "No, please don't make us do that, sir. You have done me a great favor and saved my life, but the hills are too far away. The disaster will overtake me, and I will die before I get there. Do you see that little town? It is near enough. Let me go over there. You can see it is just a small place, and I will be safe." He answered, "All right, I agree. I won't destroy that town. Hurry, run. I can't do anything until you get there." Because Lot called it small, the town was named Zoar. Okay, Zoar. This name sounds like the Hebrew word for small. Zoar. Interesting. The sun was rising when Lot reached Zoar. Suddenly the Lord rained burning sulfur on the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and destroyed them and the whole valley, along with all the people there and everything that grew on the land. But Lot's wife looked back and was turned into a pillar of salt. Early the next morning, Abraham hurried to the place where he had stood in the presence of the Lord. He looked down at Sodom and Gomorrah and the whole valley, and saw smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a huge furnace. But when God destroyed the cities of the valley where Lot was living, he kept Abraham in mind and allowed Lot to escape to safety. So, sounds to me like God only rescued Lot because, for Abraham's sake, not because Lot was necessarily a righteous person. Abraham moved from Mamre to the southern part of Canaan and lived between Kadesh and Shur. Later, while he was living in Gerar, he said that his wife Sarah was his sister. So King Abimelech of Gerar had Sarah brought to him. One night God appeared to him in a dream and said, "You are going to die because you have taken this woman. She is already married." So it sounds like you kind of did the same thing after Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. But Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, "Lord, I am innocent. Would you destroy me and my people?" Abraham himself said that she was his sister, and she said the same thing. "I did this with a clear conscience, and I have done no wrong." God replied in the dream, "Yes, I know that you did it with a clear conscience, so I kept you from sinning against me, and did not let you touch her. But now give the woman back to her husband. He is a prophet, and he will pray for you, so that you will not die. But if you do not give her back, I warn you that you are going to die, you and all your people." Early the next morning, Abimelech called all his officials and told them what had happened, and they were terrified. Then Abimelech called Abraham and asked, "What have you done to us? What wrong have I done to you to make you bring this disaster on me and on my kingdom? No one should ever do what you have done to me. Why did you do it?" Abraham answered, "I thought that would be no one here who has reverence for God, and that they would kill me to get my wife. She really is my sister. She is the daughter of my. So when God sent me from my father's house into foreign lands, I said to her, 'You can show how loyal you are to me by telling everyone that I am your brother.'" Then Abimelech gave Sarah back to Abraham, and at the same time he gave him sheep, cattle, and servants. He said to Abraham, "Here is my whole land. Live anywhere you like." He said to Sarah, "I am giving you 1,000 pieces of silver as proof to all who are with you that you are innocent. Everyone will know that you have done no wrong." Because of what had happened to Sarah, Abraham's wife, the Lord had made it impossible for any woman in Abimelech's palace to have children. So Abraham prayed for Abimelech, and God healed him. He also healed his wife and his servants, so that they could have children again. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 20. So that's 8 chapters. Some pretty heavy topics discussed there. Looks like there's no one in the live chat, but I'll just hang around for a few minutes, see if anyone comes by.